Hey, everybody. Welcome to the podcast this week. We are so excited to have Eric Busalacchi with us today, who is going to talk with us about his career and kind of his journey for how he came into this field. So, Eric, before we get started, can you give us a little bit of a background on what it is that you do?
Yeah. Hello, all. I'm in the mortgage business, so I'm in sales. We were discussing earlier, it's sort of real estate finance is how you would describe it. So I basically make the home buying process for people who want to refinance their existing home. We deal with all of that. I work for PennyMac Mortgage Company. We're one of the largest, lenders in the country for what we do. I currently now manage. So my technical role is vice president of retail sales. So I don't do any of the selling anymore. I'm not talking to physical customers. I sometimes will as needed for escalated scenarios and things like that. But I have a team of salespeople that are actively talking to customers day in and day out, helping them with their mortgage needs, whether it's we don't do a lot of home purchases in my division specifically, but we do at this company. But mainly helping people, with their existing mortgage needs, whether it's pulling cash out or, sometimes we can still lower the rate, even though it's not as common these days. So that's what I do in a nutshell.
Awesome. How did you get started in this?
It's a family business, kind of like the Godfather mob, I guess. I grew up, as an athlete, but mom and dad were both in the business. My mom's dad was in the mortgage business. My mom's sister was in the mortgage business. So unbeknownst to me growing up, it was like a pedigree that I didn't even know about nor care about really. I just knew that they were in the mortgage business. And then, I had aspirations to be a professional golfer at one point. I was trying to do that in Florida, kind of similar to somebody trying to make their way in Hollywood as a broke actor. You kind of keep grinding and grinding. And I got sick of it at one point and decided I wanted to get something more stable and start a corporate career. I met somebody at a golf course who ran a mortgage company, or he ran at least the Tampa branch when I lived in Florida at the time. And I said, hey, I don't have any experience in this, but my family does. So I know it. I'm pretty confident I could pick it up pretty quick. And that was how it all started. I started as a salesperson. I got licensed. You have to take a test similar to a realtor. You have to get your real estate exam and so forth. And I got licensed and really started from the ground up. Had no clue what I was doing or what I was looking at. And that was about 7.5 years ago now. So I feel like a veteran now.
Nice. So you mentioned like licensing and taking the real estate exam and things like that. Was there any other schooling that was required for this career? Like, did you have to have a bachelor's in anything, or what was that like?
Yeah, it's one of the cool things about the role. You don't. Most sales roles, if you can sell and talk to people and communicate effectively, that's the majority of it. Obviously, you have to learn the industry and know kind of what you're talking about. But no, you don't. You don't. Most companies do not require a bachelor's degree. It will be something that is a nice to have. It just shows that you did complete schooling and you were able to get through that and prove yourself in some form of way in a post high school environment, but it's oftentimes not required. And we've hired many people with different backgrounds who some have MBAs and some never went to college. So it's more just about your effectiveness in the role. But outside of that, no. I mean, it is the residential mortgage industry is pretty federally regulated now, so you have to there's a whole national registry of people in the business. And this happened a lot after 2008, after sort of the housing market crash. They regulated it a lot more. So now they have a whole registry of all employees who work in the business, they need to make sure that, they have a clean background by and large, have a financially responsible background and, no criminal history and so forth. And then there's of course a test that you have to take to show your industry knowledge and proficiency. And it's not an easy test, I will say. Something that anybody could pass with proper studying and so forth, but it is an industry that has a lot of kind of confusing little ins and outs and quirks. But once you get the hang of it, it's definitely not complicated.
Yeah.
Oh.
Thanks for answering that, because I know, a lot of our students might not necessarily want to go get a bachelor's degree. And so just knowing kind of which opportunities are out there for them is
Right.
great. And so I think that's awesome that you mentioned a couple of things about competency, communication, but also networking, right? Like you connected with someone on the golf course that said, hey, I'm looking to
Right.
get into something, and kind of leveraging connections there, which is great.
Yeah, that's
Absolutely.
something that carries over everywhere. I mean, how many people have you talked to, Angeli and Eric, I'm sure, that had no intentions of getting into a field? And it's like, maybe they even went to college for something else. And it's all about the people that you're meeting while there. And you're building up this network. And if you're just open to these ideas and open to new doors that might be opening up for you that you just never thought of entering, it's crazy what might come of it. So you maybe weren't as interested in real estate until the opportunity arose, but you were familiar with it enough, and all of a sudden there was a
Right.
door and you walked through it. But so
Right.
I think that's huge. And then communication, what you brought up with communication,
Right.
that is just a skill that is so important. It carries over to any career, and
Hmm.
it's something that's often lacking, especially in
Right.
today's day and age. Like, people are just so used to just emailing and texting and stuff like that. To be able to actually get on the phone and have a good conversation with somebody, and speak effectively and clearly communicate your points and your intentions and expectations and stuff like that, that's something that not everybody has nowadays. So it's a good skill to hone in
Yeah.
on.
Right. Yeah. I mean, to me, if there's any takeaway, for people who are trying to like kind of explore careers or get an idea, this idea of sales, I think, can get a negative connotation sometimes. Sometimes it has, just the very idea of somebody trying to persuade you to do something. But I've definitely reshaped my mindset around sales in general. I certainly at this company where we operate highly ethical company, and sales is not really trying to persuade somebody. You really are just confidently expressing what's in their best interest to do. And if you're on the same page, if you understand that it's a win-win with you and the person, the customer that you're dealing with, then that's really kind of the secret sauce to it. You're not doing anything that is not in their best interest, because then that's that wouldn't be an ethical thing to do. But really, it is adding value to people's lives and being able to explain that and communicate that, and it actually can be a really cool career, regardless of what you're selling. And I will say I'm not really passionate about the mortgage industry itself. I've gotten to know it really well. But what is fun about the role is sort of the kind of the art and the science of being able to communicate to customers and how to relay things to them in a valuable way and make sure that it is ultimately a good transaction at the end of the day for the person. Something that they're fully aware of what's going on, fully transparent of all the terms. I think there's a negative connotation around it sometimes, because I think when you think of it, you maybe think of like a used car salesman or something like that, who's really just thinking about padding their own pockets with commission and giving you a car that doesn't work. But really, it ought to be giving the customer a car that they want, that they're happy with, that they feel good about, they think the price is fair. That's what it ought to be, right? And that's kind of what, that's sort of my philosophy as a sales leader, is to make sure that we're offering value to the customer and that you're just conveying that in a presentable and confident way. And if you approach sales that way, it can be a very rewarding career. both in terms of just kind of the fun and competitiveness of it, and also it's financially pretty rewarding as well.
Yes. Yes, that's one perk. Careers in finance is, that's definitely a perk, is that we have a lot of people that we've interviewed that are in careers that they do for the love of the career, and it's not always the greatest financially speaking, but they do it because they love it, and that's great, and that works for them. But a win-win when you can find a career that you do enjoy and it also pays the bills, right? It allows you to do
Right.
really well for yourself and then some. So
Right.
that's definitely awesome. So is it what you thought it would be like? Like when you first got into it, did you have a vision in your mind of what it might be like? And did it meet your expectations, or is it quite different than what you thought?
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, I had, like I said, aspirations of being a golfer, and that was kind of my identity for a while. So transitioning into the corporate world, I did have some just, individual struggles dealing with that mentally. Just that this is what my life's going to be. The golf thing is kind of something that I just need to come to an acceptance that that's something I'll do forever as a sport that I love, and I can always compete. But as a career, it's probably not going to happen. So that I did have a couple of years where that was hard for me. But I will say, yeah, especially since joining this company, PennyMac, it's been awesome. Can't speak highly enough of it. I happen to just get really lucky to just have people that believed in me, and that were willing to kind of see what the attributes that I brought to the table, and think that those were good, thankfully. And I came in at a good time too, when we were growing. So I had good growth opportunities at this company. So yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. I've grown a lot these last 4 years at this company. So that is a big part of it, is having a right fit. It's not always just the industry, but sometimes the company can make a big difference. But yeah, is it what I thought? Yes and no. I mean, I didn't know what to think. I didn't know what to expect going in the industry. I just knew I wanted a more stable sort of, something that could pay a little bit more. And then, yeah, what it's evolved into, I guess I would have never, imagined managing at this point. And the coolest part too, when you manage, is of course the impact on others, and watching their careers grow and seeing them get promoted, or that it is a very kind of, management is a whole different conversation outside of just sales. So but yeah, it's been great. It really has been. It is still work. I don't feel like I'm retired or anything. I have to come in here and work, but it has overall been a really, really positive career so far.
Yeah. Something that you said resonated, and I think it's especially important with sales, is finding a company that you kind of align with values wise, because then the
Right.
sales part feels so much easier, because really, you're in real estate, finance, but there are salespeople in many industries. And even if you're not in sales, you're still always kind of selling the company that you work for. You're a representative of that company. That becomes so much easier if you truly do believe in what the company has to offer and feel like this is a worthwhile product or service. Then the
Right.
selling is just easy. You're just speaking from your heart. Like, I really know that this can benefit you. So what you said about just finding a good company to work for, if that is something that you want to pursue in sales, is going to be huge.
Right. Yeah, and I think finding good leadership too. That's important to me. I've come to realize is that the people who you work for and who, really run the show on a day-to-day basis, I have a lot of respect for. The people I think are really smart. They've have a lot of experience. They really know what they're talking about. They have a really good big picture mindset, and that's something that is important. Is to really have the respect, the people who are leading you, that you think that they're credible leaders, right? People that deserve to be in that role, and somebody who, I may even aspire to be at some point, So that's something that I've noticed has been a big deal at PennyMac.
That's awesome. And you're so right. Like leaders can make or break the environment or the company that you're working at, especially if you're wanting to align to their values, then they just don't treat people well. It's like, oh, I don't want to be here and I'm not going to put my best foot forward if I don't get, the appreciation and the reward for working so hard. So I think that's something that's very important. And so what advice would you have, Eric, for maybe someone who is looking for a career in sales or finance?
Well, first of all, I mean, it's really open for anybody. I think first would be to know if you have the aptitude for it, meaning like, is it something that, because I do believe that, everybody can shape their skill sets, right? But I do think that people do have natural aptitudes or inclinations for certain things. If you have sort of a competitiveness to you, I mean that, I played sports growing up, so I have a natural competitive side. If that's something that you notice about yourself and you have somewhat of a risk tolerance, like where your check doesn't need to be the exact amount every month. It's okay if maybe it's a little lower one month, but you have the opportunity to make more. If that's something that kind of excites you and you have a competitive drive, then you probably have the aptitude for sales. It's not like owning your own business, of course. Like I work for a company, I'm a W-2 employee, but it's sort of that mindset where you do kind of you can earn your own results in a way. And so if some people, it terrifies people, they prefer much more stability or just doing something that they know exactly what they're going to get. And that's totally okay, right? It's not for everybody. But if you sort of have a natural competitiveness to you and, like the idea of creating your own outcome, then I would definitely lean towards a sales thing. The second thing too is whatever industry you're in, is to dive all the way in. Because it pays, you don't have to love the industry. You just have to love, like I said, the art of doing it, right? It doesn't matter what you're selling. If you're selling medical devices, if you're selling, if you're in mortgage sales like I am, or anything really, it's really how to communicate effectively and learning the ins and outs of your industry. Because people really resonate with you if you sound like an expert on the phone. If somebody's calling in and you don't really sound like you really know too much about it, or you're kind of half foot in, half foot out, they can sense that. They can sense that it's something that, you're not fully in on. But if it's something that, you backwards and forwards, you can really do it with your eyes closed, and then, communicate effectively, then that would be, I would say, number two. So one, do you have the aptitude for it? And two, commit all in to learning your industry so that way you can communicate and sound like an expert to your customer.
I love that because that inspires confidence in them that they're buying a product that you care about, that you know about, and that you're kind of invested in as well. And I love the advice of, aptitudes, right? Like not all of us are meant to be scientists. Not all of us are meant to be mathematicians. Like what are you naturally skilled at? I think that's a very practical piece of advice for anyone listening. So students, take note, maybe figure out what some of your aptitudes are and what you might be good at as an option for a career. So I think that's great advice.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
One thing we ask everybody that comes on the show too, it's kind of a fun question, but if you could personally go back to yourself, Eric from high school, what kind of advice would you give yourself now knowing what you know?
Oh man, that's a good question. I would do a lot of things differently. It's so funny. I've had that conversation. Like, do you have any regrets? And of course, I don't have any major regrets, right? Like, I would not want my life any differently, right? And the people that I've met is all for a reason, and I get all that. That said, though, like, would I do things differently? Like, now that I have the experience that I have, and I'm, older and wiser, like, I do a lot of things differently. The advice I'll give myself, boy, that's a good question. There's something in my mind today just about the not being afraid to, if you know what you want, just kind of like committing to it and going all in. And it's okay if you don't, right? It's okay if you don't know, but if you, and there's time, right? Because I'm sort of like going to contradict myself, because there is plenty of time to start new, and, you know, to learn a new industry and to figure out what it is that you want. But if you have an inclination of what you want to do not be afraid to like dive all in. You know, that's something that I would do. I would say I was a little too wishy-washy when I was younger with things. And I'm a fan of conscientiousness too. I like, you know, there's something I've kind of learned in a corporate career. You know, you're constantly building a reputation for yourself every single day, right? You're building, and it's more fun when you care about that, when you care about your resume and your reputation. So have a level of conscientiousness. Like if you go to school, like do your best, like your grades, those are going to be your grades. And like you should be proud of the work you're putting out there. You know, you should be proud of the work that you're doing in general, right? Because ultimately that doesn't go away, and that'll stick with you. So, you know, just do work that you're proud of and be conscientious. And then if you do have an idea of what it is that you want to do, you know, don't be afraid to go, you know, all in.
Yeah, 100%. Explore it. Like there's so many opportunities for young people to just get into different fields and either job shadow people that they might know that are in a career, or just, I mean, the internet is a wealth of information. Like you can learn so much about different careers and things that are out there.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, for you, maybe that at that time it was pursuing, you know, professional athletics or whatever it might be. And I'm with you. I think you have to have a balance of not being completely oblivious to reality, but also like if you have a dream, pursue it. And it's okay to have fallback plans, but if you're not really going after something that you want because of the fear or some other reason, like don't let that stop you. You know, you can still be smart about your future and pursue the things you really want to do, because you never know. If you don't try it, if you don't put yourself out there, you're just going to live full of regrets. So I think it's okay to have a balance. I don't think that was contradictory. I think it just comes back to balance.
Right. Yeah. And I just meant like, you don't have to have it all figured out right away.
Yeah.
Right. Especially younger, because you have a lot of growing to do and a lot of learning. I mean, I'm not even close to I'm still me, right? But I'm way, you know, what I've learned, and just, you know, the person I am has evolved a lot, you know, since my 20s, for instance. So, or when I graduated high school, you know, still, again, a lot of the same aptitudes and so forth, but definitely have evolved a lot. So it's okay to not have a clear answer on what direction you want to go. But if you're having that sort of you know, inner gut feeling on something that you want to pursue, then go 100% all in.
Yeah, for sure. And I love what you said about evolving, because we're big on lifelong learning here at Mountain Point Academy, because it is, you're not going to be the same person that you were in your 20s. And if we all just stayed our high school selves, the world would be an interesting place with the lack of information.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Probably be in trouble.
Right. Yeah. The lack of information, experiences, knowledge, everything that you gain. And yeah, it's a daily thing. I mean, just last week, I can't even remember, somebody told me something and I was like, I never knew that before. Right. And it's like, you're just constantly learning and you're constantly evolving and changing and just getting better. And, you know, like you said, you started out not thinking, oh, hey, I'm going to be leadership one day. Right. Like I just took it as a job, and the experiences that come along and the evolution and learning that happens with those, I think, is awesome. So
it reminds me of those memes that are out there now. Like I was today years old or whatever when I found out, and then it's got some interesting fact. It happens. We don't.
It does.
Always learning new things.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining us, Eric. We appreciate the insights that you've shared, and you had some great advice for our students. So we appreciate you taking some time to just be on the show and share some things with us. So thanks again.
Thanks, Eric.
Of course. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Happy to do it. Appreciate
Awesome.
the invite.
Cool.